A wounded Apache woman crawls into a lonely cowboy's barn at midnight, carrying evidence that could destroy Montana's most respected lawman. Will Daniel risk everything to protect her, or hand her over to powerful men hunting them both? Watch until the end for this shocking Wild West mystery, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more unforgettable stories. Montana Territory, USA, 1887. Midnight silence settled over the rugged valley as rancher Daniel Harper finished securing his horses before heading toward his lonely cabin. A cold mountain wind swept across the open fields, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain. The only sounds were the gentle rustling of dry grass and the occasional howl of a wolf echoing through the hills. Daniel had lived alone on his ranch for years and had learned to recognize every ordinary sound of the wilderness. That was why the strange scraping noise coming from his old wooden barn instantly caught his attention and made him freeze in place. Daniel reached for the Winchester rifle resting beside his cabin door and lifted an oil lantern with his other hand. He slowly crossed the yard, every careful step crunching against the dry dirt beneath his boots. His horses seemed unusually restless, stamping their hooves and snorting toward the barn, as if they sensed danger. Daniel suspected a hungry coyote had slipped inside, searching for food, or perhaps a desperate horse thief had chosen the wrong ranch to rob. He quietly pushed open the heavy barn door, raising the lantern high while keeping his rifle ready for whatever waited inside the darkness. The warm lantern light revealed scattered hay, old farming tools, and frightened horses shifting nervously in their stalls. Then Daniel noticed movement near the back wall. A young Apache woman was crawling weakly through the hay, leaving a faint trail of blood behind her. Her traditional buckskin clothing was torn, covered with dirt, and stained dark red around her shoulder, where a bullet had torn through the flesh. Her breathing was shallow, and every movement showed unbearable pain. She looked up, with exhausted eyes filled more with determination than fear, struggling to remain conscious despite her serious injuries. The woman tried to rise but collapsed against a stack of hay bales. Daniel lowered his rifle, realizing she posed no threat. Through trembling lips, she whispered, "Please, don't let them find me." Her voice carried desperation unlike anything Daniel had ever heard before. He could ask who was chasing her. She reached beneath her torn blanket and handed him a worn leather pouch tied tightly with a rawhide cord. The effort drained the last of her strength, and she nearly lost consciousness while silently urging him to protect whatever was hidden inside before anyone else arrived. Daniel untied the pouch with cautious hands and carefully emptied its contents onto an old wooden crate. A polished silver deputy's badge rolled across the surface beside several blood-stained legal papers bearing official government seals. At the bottom rested a weathered leather journal with the name Deputy Marshal Thomas Briggs pressed into its cover. Daniel immediately recognized the name. Briggs was celebrated throughout Montana as an honorable lawman who had hunted dangerous outlaws for years. The discovery made no sense. Why would an injured Apache woman possess the personal belongings of the county's most respected deputy marshal? He quickly examined the stained documents without unfolding every page. Even in the dim lantern light, he noticed signatures from federal land offices and handwritten notes mentioning secret property transfers, witness statements, and unexplained payments. Fresh blood had smeared across several pages, making parts impossible to read. Daniel realized these papers were valuable enough for someone to kill over. If they revealed corruption involving powerful officials, anyone carrying them would become a target. The wounded stranger had not wandered onto his ranch by accident. She had come seeking someone willing to risk everything for the truth. Daniel wrapped the documents back inside the pouch and slipped it beneath his coat, just as the horses became even more agitated. Their ears pointed toward the open fields beyond the barn. A moment later, the quiet night was broken by the distant thunder of galloping horses. Several riders were approaching fast. The sound grew louder with every passing second until dust drifted across the moonlit yard. Daniel quietly extinguished his lantern, leaving only pale moonlight filtering through the wooden walls. He helped the exhausted woman behind stacked hay bales and motioned for complete silence while gripping his rifle once again. Within moments, at least 6 armed riders surrounded the ranch from every direction. Their horses snorted impatiently while leather saddles creaked in the still night air. One rider called out in a commanding voice, demanding that Daniel open the barn and surrender the wounded Apache woman. Immediately, he claimed she had stolen government property and murdered an officer while escaping custody. Daniel glanced toward the unconscious woman hidden in the shadows, then tightened his grip on the rifle. Deep inside, he knew the truth carried in that leather pouch was far more dangerous than any outlaw ever hunted across Montana. Daniel quickly spread fresh hay over the wounded Apache woman, leaving just enough space for her to breathe. He placed several old grain sacks nearby to make the hiding place appear untouched. Then he picked up his lantern, blew out the flame, and stood beside the barn entrance with his Winchester rifle resting across his chest. The darkness inside worked in his favor, hiding every detail from curious eyes. His heartbeat remained steady, but he knew one careless mistake would cost both their lives. Outside, hoofbeats stopped, followed by the sound of boots striking the hard ground with confidence. The barn door swung open without warning, and 4 heavily armed riders stepped inside, carrying bright lanterns. Their leader wore a long black coat with a polished badge pinned proudly across his chest. He introduced himself as Deputy Collins and claimed they were searching for a dangerous Apache, fugitive accused of murdering Deputy Marshal Thomas Briggs and stealing confidential government property. He waved an official-looking sheriff's warrant before Daniel's face, demanding permission to search every corner of the ranch. Daniel listened carefully without lowering his rifle, studying each man's expression instead of believing the papers they carried. As the leader moved closer, Daniel noticed something unusual. The silver badge hanging from the rider's coat looked completely different from the blood-stained badge hidden inside his own pocket. The shape, engraving, and county seal did not match at all. Years spent trading supplies with lawmen had taught Daniel to recognize official badges, and this difference could not be ignored. He realized someone was lying. Keeping his voice calm, Daniel stated that no armed stranger would search his property without proper identification from the county sheriff himself. The riders exchanged uneasy glances, clearly surprised by his firm refusal. One deputy stepped forward with his revolver half drawn, warning Daniel that helping a fugitive made him an enemy of the law. Daniel answered by cocking the hammer of his Winchester. The sharp metallic click echoed through the silent barn, freezing everyone in place. His horses stomped nervously behind the wooden stalls while dust floated through the cold night air. For several tense moments, nobody moved. Daniel's eyes never left the armed men, and neither side seemed willing to fire the first shot. The silence became heavier than the threat of bullets, stretching endlessly beneath the pale Montana moon. Finally, the leader lowered his lantern and signaled his companions toward the exit. Before climbing onto his horse, he pointed directly at Daniel and delivered a chilling warning. He declared that the county sheriff would arrive at sunrise with enough deputies to search every building on the ranch. If Daniel was hiding the Apache woman, both of them would be arrested for murder and treason against the government. The riders disappeared into the darkness, leaving only drifting dust and fading hoofbeats behind. Daniel waited several minutes before believing they had truly ridden away from his property. When complete silence returned, Daniel carefully removed the hay covering the wounded woman. She slowly opened her eyes, breathing painfully but remaining fully alert. "My name is Ayana," she whispered, forcing a faint smile despite her injuries. Daniel handed her fresh water from a nearby bucket, and after drinking, she gathered enough strength to speak. She thanked him for risking his life and admitted the riders were not real deputies at all. They worked for powerful men who controlled the county through fear, stolen money, and false authority. Their badges represented lies instead of justice. Ayanna explained that 3 nights earlier she had secretly witnessed Deputy Marshal Thomas Briggs meeting corrupt ranch owners and dishonest officials inside an abandoned trading post. Hidden outside a broken window, she watched Briggs shoot an honest federal investigator after the man refused to destroy important government land records. Before dying, the investigator managed to hand Ayanna the leather journal and official documents, begging her to expose the truth. Briggs immediately ordered his men to hunt her down, knowing those papers listed every illegal land seizure, every secret payment, and every official who had accepted bribes. Daniel slowly opened the weathered journal beneath the dim glow of a newly lit lantern. Every page contained names, dates, secret payments, and detailed records linking respected officials, wealthy ranchers and trusted lawmen, to a massive conspiracy stretching across Montana territory. Some signatures belonged to men Daniel had known for years. Others belonged to judges and government agents whose reputations seemed beyond question. Closing the journal with a heavy sigh, Daniel understood the danger completely. By protecting Ayanna and safeguarding those documents, he had unknowingly declared war against the most powerful and ruthless lawman in all of Montana.